The town. Every time he was a teenager, Max lived in the mountains in the town, a place so old that the people living there had forgotten its name. On rainy days, Max ventured into the deep woods to listen to raindrops spatter the leaves of vine maples. He enjoyed lifting his face skyward amid fern and nettles so that droplets peppered his eyelids. His mind went clear as he leaned on a stick or idly picked with his thumbnail at a piece of hairy cedar bark. Pulling up a crumbling, spongy nurse log, he exposed a civilization of beetles, worms, and white highways of mycelium. The wilderness kept drawing him to trails forged by untold generations of deer. These woods couldn't care less about him. That's why he loved them so much. Devil's Club, red huckleberry, lettuce lung lichen, rhododendron. Max returned home drenched and warmed up beside the wood stove in the A-frame that he shared with his mother, a sweatered astrophysical architect with a staccato laugh and an encyclopedic knowledge of soup recipes named Carly. Sooner or later, you're going to turn into a mushroom out there, Carly said, draping a wool blanket the color of blood over his shoulders. Max presented his palms to the heat of the stove. Releasing spores and eavesdropping on conversations between trees all day sounds like a good time to me. Carly leaned against the kitchen island. She clanked a spoon around inside a cup of jasmine tea. You'd make a good fungus. It suits you to stay rooted in place. You don't think I have what it takes to become an ancestor engineer? You definitely have the intellect and concentration for it, but the substrate can be brutal and horrifying. It's unjust, loud, and stinks of exhaust. Ancestor engineers have to be able to slip in and out unnoticed. They can't draw attention to themselves. You're too handsome. You turn heads in there. And no, I'm not just saying that because I'm your mother. So I should become a townie, work in a store, marry some girl, get a doctorate or two, coach soccer. Carly slid beside her son on the sofa and attempted to hook her arm around his shoulders like she used to be able to. You're so doomed to spend your life surrounded by love, celebrated by a community of people who adore you. Any ancestor would trade their lives in a heartbeat for what we have here. Max thought, so why did Dad leave? The question scratched at the insides of his mouth. He added another log to the fire. Sometimes I think you and Dad made me black so that I'd spend as little time as possible in the 20th century. You want to know where your father went. That's what you think everything's about. If I were you, I'd want to know too, and I wish I had an answer for you, but no, we weren't thinking about whether or not you'd become an engineer when we chose the color of your skin. Keep in mind how primitive the technology was back then. Users were stuck with an entirely olfactory experience. You could put on a mask and smell a time and a place, which was still incredible, but that was pretty much the only way you could interface with the substrate. The room in which Max stood and Carly slumped on the sofa vibrated with macrame, houseplants, vinyl records, artist monographs, acoustic guitars, and furniture designed by rational Scandinavians in the years following the Second World War. A cozy nest of boho throws and geodes. Outside the window, a view of mountainside conifers cloaked in mist. Max had to admit that this was a happy place to grow up. Maybe too happy. The town had one of everything that anyone could possibly need for as long as anyone could possibly remember. The home to a few thousand souls prospered in a green seam along a creek, a pocket of civilization lodged snugly between mountains. Every day the sun rose over the high school football field and set behind the Vicarious neighborhood. The town's charms included a 3-screen cinema, 3 bookstores, 1 new, 1 used, 1 metaphysical, a musical instrument shop, a record store, good restaurants, Mexican, Thai, pizza, burgers, Vietnamese, French, Indian, brew pub, seafood, 2 cafes with stages for live music, a food co-op with a top-notch deli, a couple of bars, 2 department stores for clothes and home goods, 2.5 art galleries, a sculpture garden, a candy store, a toy store, a weekly newspaper, a bustling library, a hardware store, a luthier, a nursery, and Carly's observatory. It was the kind of hometown where anyone would be fortunate to accrue friendships, fall in love, and leave behind fond memories in the hearts of devoted family and friends. One snowy night after dinner, the town's citizens bundled themselves in scarves and gloves and puffy coats, left their houses when the streetlights flickered to life, and horsed around and gossiped as they trickled in from side streets onto Main, where they exclaimed greetings to each other en route to the annual Christmas time gathering at the high school football field. Max wasn't exactly attending the event against his will, but unlike Carly, who was curled up in a blanket on the couch with a cold, he hadn't come up with an excuse to skip the yearly tradition. A variety of townsfolk called out to him from across the street. "Evening, Max. Max, there's my man. Sup, Max? That Max I see over there? Yo, Max, I was hoping I'd run into you." Max responded to these greetings in kind. "Back at you, Fred. Nice to see you, Dottie. Mr. Chin, how goes it? Eddie, Rocio, bring it in." He made it a point to revisit a fond memory or two. For everyone he greeted, reminding himself to appreciate his growing treasure trove of sunsets, hiking trips, practical jokes, parties, and tournaments. The community enjoyed recalling Max as a kid who built his own greenhouse in 4th grade and made a couple of clutch plays in Little League. Approaching the high school, little groups of twos and threes merged into a singular mass of townsfolk, cajoling, confiding, arguing, complaining, joking, and commiserating their way through the gates of the stadium and up into the stands. Scanning the home team side, Max spotted his buddy Gio Way, who waved wildly and called out, "Max, Max, over here, sit by me, sit by me." After exchanging a series of high fives, fist bumps, and back slaps with a dozen or so friends and neighbors on the way up the stands, Max slid beside Gio, who'd secured a jumbo-sized popcorn that he was eager to share. Standing at a spindly 6'5", Gio resembled a scientific instrument that might be put into service to measure barometric conditions or deep space signals. He was partial to bow ties and tweed vests and inclined to dress inappropriately for the weather. "Oh man, is this ever going to be a special night?" Gio said. "That's a lot of popcorn, bro. This is the kind of night when only a jumbo will do. Guess how many thumbs up this night is going to get?" "I don't know, I'm guessing a lot." 26,277 thumbs ups. That's a lot of thumbs ups, man. It's going to be that special. Max noticed that his friend wasn't wearing gloves and his hands were starting to turn red. "Dude, you got to put on gloves. Take mine." "Yeah, my fingers are starting to sting. I think this could be the night Santa gives me a car." What would you do with a car?" "You're ridiculous, Max. What do you think I'd do with a car? Drive it." "Yeah, but drive it where? You have places to be?" "I'll drive it all the way to Pussyland." "It's a long way from here to Pussyland, my friend." "It'll be a road trip. You want to come along?" "Come along? What do you think? I call shotgun." The high school marching band took to the field in their sparkly red and white uniforms and kicked off an extra brassy rendition of Otis Redding's Hard to Handle. Gio whipped his head around and pumped his fist. Max scanned the crowd and counted how many folks worked at Vicarious. About a quarter of those assembled, he figured. The band concluded their set with a fiery rendition of Are You Gonna Go My Way, then scampered off the field. A clarinet player tripped, face-planted, and quickly recovered to a collective wave of laughter. With the field emptied, the crowd went silent in anticipation. All eyes lifted skyward. After a few minutes, Gio gasped, "There he is!" Max squinted and tried to follow the direction of Gio's finger. As murmurs shivered through the stands, a white dot grew larger in the night sky. As per usual, the flying saucer descended noiselessly and hovered a good 20 feet over the 50-yard line, silver and seamless, its underside ringed with lights, so large that its circumference could be touched by home team and visitors alike. After a minute or so, a ramp hissed down and a familiar figure emerged from a puff of vapor. Gio leapt to his feet and bellowed, "Santa Claus!" Emerging from his craft with what appeared to be a stiffer than usual gait, as though he'd recently thrown out his back during sex with Mrs. Claus, Santa gamely waved, followed by two strung-out-looking elves who struggled to carry his red-upholstered throne, which they plopped down on the home team side, in the spot where a coach might have bellowed frustrated orders to his losing team. Gio clutched Max's arm and jumped up and down, exclaiming, "I can't believe he's here! Oh my God, what is Santa going to bring me this year?" One by one, the town's residents assembled in an orderly queue beneath the looming curvature of the flying saucer for their turn to sit on Santa's lap and receive a gift. The elves hustled into the interior of the craft to retrieve colorful packages gaily wrapped in ribbons and bows. Santa stood about 10 feet tall, so his lap accommodated even the huskiest of townspeople. The school band proceeded to perform its well-rehearsed repertoire of Christmas classics from its place in the stands. Losing sight of Geo in the scrum, Max slipped into line beside Kitty from the bakery. Kitty was a hard-to-impress woman in her early 60s, the kind of lady who raises her eyebrows at whatever dubious claim you happen to be making while she cleans her reading glasses on a ratty corner of her sweater. Max often dropped by the bakery for one of Kitty's chocolate croissants and a cup of oat milk chai. Tonight she acknowledged his presence in the Santa line with the faintest lift of a corner of her mouth, which, coming from her, counted as an effusive greeting. "Here we are, going through this rigmarole yet again," Kitty said, making her way through a wrinkled bag of mixed nuts, nut by nut. "Ho, ho, ho," said Max. "Where's your mom? Stayed home, has a cold." "To think she's missing out on her chance for a neck massager." "Want a nut?" "What is that, a cashew?" "No, this would be an almond, Max. Cashews are curved, shaped like a little sea creature." As the line inched forward, Kitty treated Max to the wandering attention of her mind, which touched upon such topics as why the hardware store closed early on Thursdays to the best way to get candle wax out of a flannel shirt. The quotidian restlessness of everyday life vexed Kitty. All the little appointments and repairs, the replacement parts, the troubleshooting of malfunctioning appliances, the need to substitute ingredients in a recipe. How could one person be expected to stay on top of it all? Kitty presented herself as barely capable of all the tidying and organizing required to maintain equilibrium, and yet somehow she managed to produce the finest tarts and pinwheels and loaves of steaming sourdough and rye. There were few better ways to kill time than to spend half an hour at Kitty's bake shop, sipping something warm, enjoying the flake of a Queen Amman as delicate as an insect's wing. Having spent many afternoons studying structural biochemistry or paleobotany or some such in the bakery's corner booth, Max had observed that it was only when Kitty stood behind the counter, her face a blast zone of flour, her hair totally bananas, that she appeared in her element. Any time he ran into her on the street or at the food co-op or at the community events like this one, she radiated a disingenuously crabby and vituperative effect, as if a certain off-duty sourness of mood was necessary to balance the friendly customer service for which her shop was so rightly admired. Max cleared his throat. "Can I get your opinion on something? I've been thinking about maybe applying to work at Vicarious." "Oh, brother," Kitty exhaled. "I have a feeling I might be good at whatever it is they do there." "Then you're probably actually already working for them. You just don't realize it yet. I dated a fellow once who was working for Vicarious for 3-4 years before he realized he even had a job. You think you're enjoying your life, but then one day you find out that your daily activities are actually projects. That's how Vicarious seems to operate. It's only with the higher level jobs that you're even clued into the fact that you're actually employed." Max glanced at the line ahead. Friedrich, the town's go-to beautician, awkwardly pulled himself onto Santa's lap and spoke to him rapidly, with a lot of hand gestures. Santa slowly nodded, listening patiently. Friedrich must have had a particularly long list this year, or more likely was making a last-ditch effort to keep himself off the naughty list. An hour passed and the flying saucer persisted with its pleasant ambient hum. Max gazed up at its underside, trying in vain to locate a rivet or seam. The reverse engineering on these things was impressive. Supposedly, when you traveled in a saucer, you didn't feel like you were going from point A to point B. You felt as if you occupied both points A and B and every point in between. Then you stepped out. You were here, there, and nowhere, immortal, ephemeral, timeless, and partially non-existent. Sounded a little too freaky to Max. Finally, it was Max's turn to sit on Santa's lap. The giant St. Nicholas beckoned him toward his throne. A gaunt-looking elf leaned over and said, in a deeper than one might expect elf voice, "Make it snappy, bud." Max climbed up and settled onto Santa's gigantic leg. The representative of seasonal merriment placed his enormous gloved left hand on the entirety of Max's back. The embodiment of Yuletide smelled, no surprise, of peppermint and nutmeg. "Max," Santa bellowed, "have you been a good boy?" "I mean, I suppose," Max said. "I aced all my classes, helped my mom around the house, volunteered to rake the leaves, and shovel the Perez's drive. All told, this year's been pretty solid." Up close, beads of sweat were clearly visible on Santa's forehead, and his eyes faintly vibrated in their sockets. Max could tell at this distance that the beard was fake. He even noticed the elastic strap looped around Santa's right ear. "And what would you like for Christmas this year?" Santa said. Max shrugged. "You know, I've given it some thought, and I've got to say I'm all good. Honestly, there's nothing I really need." Santa subtly recoiled. Out of the corner of his eye, Max noticed that one of the elves, bearing a package wrapped in gold foil, froze in an expression adjacent to terror. Santa's eyes briefly widened, then squinted again as his belly jiggled with the sound of his chuckles. "Oh, you're a silly one. Ho, ho, ho. Look at you playing a joke on jolly old Santa. Everyone wants a present." "No, seriously," Max said. "I'm set. I've got books, friends, clothes, plenty to eat. My mountain bike is in pretty good shape, so I can't, for the life of me, think of anything I could possibly want at this point." Santa's back stiffened. He reached over and quickly snatched the gold foil-wrapped package out of the hands of the nodding-off elf and shoved it roughly into Max's chest. Pressing his gigantic nose into Max's, he lowered his voice to a growl. "Just take the fucking present and get the fuck out of here." Gift in hand, Max slipped off Santa's lap, shaken and bewildered. Apparently he'd violated some sort of unspoken code. As Kitty took to St. Nick's lap to assure him of her good behavior and receive a hilarious ferret calendar, Max left the community gathering and took a less traveled route home. In all the years he'd been attending the gathering at Santa's Flying Saucer, the jolly paragon of holiday cheer had never spoken to him in such a brusque and profane manner. He didn't know what to make of it. Back home, Max kicked off his boots in the mudroom. Carly was sitting in the living room watching TV. He found her bundled in her favorite wool blanket with wads of tissue in a pile on the floor. "How was it?" she said. "Fine, lots of people there." "What'd you get?" "What do you mean?" "Your present. You didn't open it?" Max looked down at the package in his hands. "Oh, I guess not," he said, peeling off the wrapping paper. It was a thick, battered paperback with a split spine and dog-eared pages, held together with a crumbling rubber band. Confessions of a Justified Pussy Hound by Lee Highwater. "It's a book," Max said, showing his mom. "I see. It appears you've been recruited. By who?" "Vicarious, you goof." Outside, Geo Wei honked and waved from behind the wheel of a sick, candy apple red Trans Am. Thanks.